In this class, we're gonna be making a delicious 3-course restaurant quality menu in your house. We're gonna be making a charred beet salad with pumpkin seed hummus, sablefish with corn, miso, bacon risotto, and miso is a game changer in all of your risottos, and a vegan, gluten-free chocolate brownie. So let's take a look at what's included in our kit. For our first course, we have some hummus mix for our pumpkin seed hummus. We have charred beets. We have a bit of arugula for garnishing the appetizer and the main course. And we have some mint. For our risotto, we have a borio rice. We have our cornstalk, corn, butter, corn puree, miso, parmesan, bacon. And we have a lemon for absolutely everything tonight because lemon makes everything better. For dessert, we have black bean puree. We have a little wet mix, which is vanilla, maple, and coconut oil. If you have a white layer on top, that's just coconut oil. You can leave it out at room temperature or nuke this for 30 seconds. Nuke means put it in the microwave so that we can just melt that fat layer. And we have a dry mix, which is gluten-free oat flour, cocoa powder, salt, baking soda, and chocolate chips. If your kit looks any different than this, it's most likely because of allergies. So if you've notified us of any allergies, a dairy allergy, a nut allergy, an onion and garlic allergy, we've made the proper adjustments so that you can cook a great, safe meal. For this class, this is all the equipment we're gonna need. We're gonna need a medium-sized mixing bowl, a large mixing bowl, a pot that's big enough to cook risotto in. It doesn't need to be this exact pot. It can be a little bit smaller, a little bit wider. Whatever you have is gonna work great. A medium saute pan, a large saute pan, a rubber spatula, a couple of tasting spoons just so we can taste the food as we go, a little bowl of salt, olive oil, and cooking oil, a spatula, a whisk, a microplane, which is basically a fine cheese grater. If you don't have one, if you just have a cheese grater, that's okay. A kitchen knife, any kitchen knife will do. And a couple of baking sheets. So I have a pie pan here and a couple here. Now these are not necessary, but they make your class a lot more easy, a lot more stress-free, and especially when you learn how to cook for a bunch of people, it makes it super easy where you don't have to get stressed out. As well, a high-powered blender. We have a Vitamix. If you don't have a high-powered blender, a food processor, a hand blender, a Bullet, a Ninja, your smoothie machine, that all works great. And if you don't have any of those, it doesn't matter. We're still gonna make a delicious pumpkin seed dressing. So this is all the equipment we're gonna need for this class. So the first thing we need to do is get our vegan gluten-free brownies ready so we can get rid of some of this equipment and clean up for exactly what we need. For this, you'll need a whisk, a spatula, and a medium-sized mixing bowl. Mine is about 8 inches long and about 6 inches deep. So anything similar to this will work great. With the rest of the equipment, we can put to the side or on our stove just to get it out of the way. So now we have everything we need. Let's preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna preheat our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. So now we have everything ready. If your coconut oil is cold on the top here and we need to melt it, just run a little bit of hot water in your sink and just place it under there for a good 2 minutes. It melts relatively quickly. Nothing too bad there. So we're gonna grab our black bean puree. We're gonna just cut a corner off of this here. Ooh, those are nice scissors. Nothing like cutting something with brand new scissors. That made me feel like my kid again. So we're gonna take out our black bean puree from the bag. Now I've been told I can cook pretty quick, so I'm gonna do this at normal human pace, not professional chef pace. Whenever we get this black bean puree, now this recipe is really easy to make And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I have gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan friends over, I'm always stumped with what to make. So now you will have this amazingly simple recipe to keep in your back pocket that'll make it wonderfully easy and delicious to cook for your friends. And now this doesn't need to be made the day of. I always find the taste of this improves as we give it a couple of days. I don't know what happens to it when we let it sit in the fridge overnight, but something magical happens and it gets delicious. So whenever you want to take, if ever you have a plastic bag, we can put on the cutting board and just scrape out everything to the top here, just like that. And then that gives us really easy access to getting everything out of the bag. This bag is recyclable, so you can just throw this into your plastics recycling. So as I was saying, with this brownie mix, you can actually make this a couple of days ahead in advance. It stays good for 5 days. It won't last 5 days because I guarantee you're gonna eat the whole thing. The wonderful thing about these brownies is that they don't make you fat because they're vegan and gluten-free, right? So we're gonna take our dry mix, just take the lid off of that. These containers work great for lunches. They work great for little salads or portioning out your own meal prep throughout the week, so be sure to keep them and reuse them. And now, this is kind of like a take on a traditional Chinese red black bean paste. So we're kind of using beans as like a sweetener and a binding agent to hold the brownies together. And it creates a really nice texture within your brownie so that it remains chewy, moist, it won't dry out. And the other wonderful thing about this is that these brownies won't dry out. So you could cook them for as long as you want. And now they're not gonna dry out. So a couple of other things about this brownie here is that everybody's gonna have a different brownie tin. I'm gonna be using a banana bread tin. You can use a 9x9 cake tin, or whatever works well for you. So I'm gonna take my banana bread tin and I'm just gonna pour a little bit of oil on the inside, like half of a teaspoon. And I'm just gonna take some paper towel and just wipe it on the inside, and that will prevent the brownie from sticking to the edges. Unless you have a really old one, which I'm sure many of us do. The brownie shouldn't stick to the side as it is, but if it does, not a big deal. So here we have our wet mix. My coconut oil is still a little bit hard on the top, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. It'll mash in there. And as we cook it, it actually breaks down into the brownie. So that won't be anything to be too concerned about. So once we get this all together in a bowl, we just mix it until it actually looks like a brownie batter. So we're just gonna mix it all together. Just stab it a little bit to break up all the chocolate chips and all the gluten-free flour. And now, if you have all of these ingredients and you're making it from scratch, all you have to do is place everything in a food processor. So you just take all of your ingredients from the recipe, place it into a food processor, and turn it on. These are canned black beans, so it's nothing too fancy. You can just open up the can, drain off the water, put it in, and it works great. So once we have this batter here, I'll just show you what the texture's like on it. It's a little thick man. So we take that and we just get it into our baking dish. And I'm going to use our rubber spatula just to make sure that every last piece gets out there. Every last bit in the bowl gets out. So now, people always ask me, how long is this going to take? Everybody's going to have a different size baking dish. This one's going to be about 2 inches thick, so this is going to take a good hour to cook. If you have something that is a little bit bigger than this, the brownie will be thinner, there'll be more surface area, more moisture will cook off, it'll take less time to cook, so you might be looking at 40 minutes. So my suggestion is, set your timer when you put this in the oven Set your timer for 40 minutes. When your timer's set for 40 minutes, check it after that. The top of the brownie mix should be cracked and dry. When it looks cracked and dry, that's when it's gonna be done, and we wanna cool this down for as long as we can before we eat it. So once we have all that in there, it's a little loud, just pat down the bottom so that the brownie mix sinks to the bottom, and we're gonna throw this in a 375 Fahrenheit oven. For myself, this will take at least 1 hour. So it's really important we keep our kitchen clean throughout this whole class, because the last thing I want to do is leave you with a disaster in your kitchen. So just take 2 minutes and just quickly rinse and wash everything we have here. There you go. It makes it a lot more pleasant as we're cleaning as we go. Give yourself a high five. We just made our dessert. We have a nice clean kitchen, nice and organized. So now the next thing we're gonna wanna do is get our risotto going. And now we're gonna cook our risotto like we do in an actual live restaurant. What I mean by that is then we just have to finish it off with the butter, the corn puree, the miso, the parmesan, and so forth. So what we need for this one right here is our risotto pot. So a pot that you're gonna cook risotto in. You're gonna need the corn stock. You're gonna need the arborio rice. And we're gonna need some olive oil. So we're just gonna put about a tablespoon of olive oil in the pan. And we're just gonna toast our rice off in this olive oil. So we're gonna take our arborio rice here. We're gonna cut a corner off the bag, and we are going to dump the arborio rice into the pot. With this, we just want a rubber spatula, and we're just gonna put this over the heat, and we're gonna toast it for about 5 minutes. Now, everybody's risotto is gonna cook differently. So, risotto cooks so differently because it depends on the style of pan you're using. It depends on how much surface area there is. It depends on how strong your stove is. It depends on how much rice you're cooking. The variables are just too much. So everybody's risotto is gonna cook differently. And what I specifically mean by that is that some of you are going to use this whole bag of stock. Some of you are not going to use this whole bag of stock. So we're only gonna add in a third of the stock at a time. And as we're adding the stock in, sometimes it's gonna hit the pan and it's gonna boil real quickly. Some of you are gonna add the stock in, it's gonna take a little bit to boil because maybe you have an electrical oven or a weak electrical oven or a really strong one. So it all depends. And it depends on how quickly the rice absorbs the stock. So we're all gonna be using a different amount of corn stock, and we all like, making risotto is a really personal thing. Everybody likes a different bite to their risotto. I personally like my risotto really al dente, so I'm not gonna use as much stock as somebody that likes their risotto a little bit more soft. So whatever you use, there is no wrong answer here. This is just a guideline on how to make it. And when we talk about it and we start tasting the risotto through the class, whenever you think it tastes good, that's when you pull it off. Fortunately for me, this risotto is really popular, and I will tell you when I pull my risotto off. Just because I pull my risotto off at one point does not mean you need to, because it might be a little bit too hard for you. I know my wife does not like crunchy risotto, so she doesn't necessarily love my risotto, but people do, I promise. So what we're looking for when we're toasting off the risotto is a nice nutty aroma. Try not to burn your hair off with, and there's such a strong oven going on. It just gives it a really nice nutty toasted flavor on your finished product. And you might be asking, well, there's no wine in this, and that's correct. I only put wine in risotto when we're making a very classic risotto, such as a lemon parmesan, maybe a lobster risotto. But when we're doing miso, corn, bacon, there's such strong flavors, you'd rather drink the wine. Trust me, you want it in your belly. You don't want to cook off the alcohol in the risotto. It would just get lost in the mix of everything else, and just there's no really point to it. So, and we have garlic and onions in the puree already, so you're not really going to need to add any more garlic and onions to this. So, as you can tell here, it's starting to smell delicious. It smells like nuts. It actually smells like toasted nuts. And so, as we're mixing it here, you can tell the rice you can see it getting golden brown. I'll just give it a little. You can see it getting toasty there, and you don't want to leave it for too long, because it does burn fairly quickly, especially when you have a really high amount of heat. So this is over medium-high heat. So you want relatively medium-high heat. If the rice is starting to get a little bit too toasty, turn down your heat. Just cut an edge off your stock so that it's easily pourable. Don't cut it off from the top, because then you can easily dump a whole bunch in at one time. And when your rice looks nice and toasty and a little golden brown, we are going to add in just 1/3 of the stock. 1/3 of the stock. So now we're going to multitask a little bit here, because we can cook this risotto as we start to make our hummus for the charred beet salad. So just keep a half an eye on this. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I'll constantly remind you to come back and keep on keeping an eye on it. We're going to turn our heat to medium right now, just so we have a little bit more time to manage this whole situation and make something else. So over medium heat, we're going to start to cook down our first round of stock. When our stock gets dry, that's when we're going to add in another 1/3 of the stock. So we're going to add 2/3 in at that point. We're going to do it again. We're going to taste it. It's probably still going to be a bit crunchy, and we're going to gauge how much more stock we need to put in. So all we need for this is our risotto and our stock. We don't need anything else yet. That goes in at the very end, so do not put any of that other stuff in, because I know people are always going, what do I do with the bacon? Do I put in the puree yet? Do I put in this yet? No, it's just rice and stock right now. We're going to let that go, and we're going to start to make some pumpkin seed hummus. So as we're keeping an eye on our risotto back here, just reminded you, and I'll remind you again and again, we're going to start to get together our pumpkin seed hummus. Now for this one, we are going to need our blender, food processor, bullet, smoothie machine, whatever you have to make your smoothies or puree anything. We're going to need our hummus mix and pumpkin seeds. These are the only two things we need. We do not need the beets. Do not blend your beets into this. We're not making beet hummus. If you did, it would be delicious, I promise you, but we are not making beet hummus tonight. Those are charred beets going with a pumpkin seed hummus. Now, the beautiful thing about this little bag right here is that this is a great base for any hummus you're making. So even if you add chickpeas to this, you could add sunflower seeds, you could add peas, you could add roasted carrots, roasted cauliflower, you could add charred beets, and this would make a delicious any flavor hummus. So in the recipe, there is a very specific amount of ingredients. Even if you drink this as it is delicious. This is the flavor base for any hummus that you want to make. One of my other favorite moves is roasting a whole head of cauliflower till it's like really charred and burnt on the outside, and then add this to a whole head of cauliflower. It'll turn out so good. But we're going to do pumpkin seeds for tonight's class. So all we need is our blender, our hummus mix, our pumpkin seeds. Let's just go take a quick look at our risotto to make sure it's still going well. So our risotto right here, if you get a close up on this, if I go to part the C here, the risotto stays on either side. So that means that it's ready to take a little bit more stock, and we're doing great. So I'm going to add in another 1/3. Now this oven is extremely powerful, so I might use all of my stock on this. So be mindful of that. Drop in the comments, how's your risotto doing? 10 for killing it, 1 for, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. How you doing? So as we have this done, we're going to go back over to our hummus and we're going to get that going. So we're going to make the pumpkin seed hummus. I have a Vitamix, like I said. You can use whatever piece of equipment you have that makes your best puree, best smoothie. whatever you like. So we'll take these scissors. Again, we'll open up this bag here. We're gonna drop the pumpkin seeds into the Vitamix. Do not drop the plastic bag into the Vitamix. We are not making plastic hummus. That would be terrible. And then your hummus mix here. We're gonna cut the corner off of that. And we're just going to drop that into the Vitamix as well. Now this is perfectly portioned out for you, so you don't need to worry about it. If you were to be making this on your own, you could really just always start with a little bit too little product and just keep on adding the product in until it gets to the consistency that you like. Like I said, this is a great base for any hummus that you ever want to make. So we get that in there. We're going to turn this on to very high speed as this can go, for about 1 minute. So if you have another blender that's not a Vitamix, that's totally fine. Let's just go take a look at our risotto, just to make sure, before we start this, to make sure it's all good. So the risotto is smelling really good. Smells nutty, smells like onions, smells like corn. Really great. So we can go back and finish off this while that finishes off. So if you have any other kind of blender, it might not make it as thick or as pureed as what I'm going to make, which is okay. Everyone is going to turn out differently. Some are going to be liquidy, some are going to be super thick. It all depends on how many horsepower your blender has. If you don't have a good blender, or if you have a hand blender, it's going to come out more like a dressing, and that's okay. It's still going to be delicious, and we can still use that. I promise. It's going to be textural, it's going to be chewy, it's going to go really well to dress the beets, and as well, this is also a great dressing for like a quinoa salad. I mean, I put this on everything. I put on toast in the morning with avocado, and this is too much for tonight's class, so you're going to have a ton left over, so you're welcome. And we'll turn this on as high speed as we can get. I said as high speed as we can get. So, once we have our hummus made here, I'll show you how thick mine is. And now it's fairly liquidy, but that's okay. This heats up all the fats in the pumpkin seeds, so it's going to be a little bit more liquidy. Like when you heat up butter, it gets a little bit thinner, right? So once we put this in the fridge, it's gonna have time to relax. The fats are going to tighten up a little bit, and it will get a little bit thicker. Again, this is still an absolutely delicious product. You can put it on salads. You can use it as salad dressing. You could use it on toast in the morning. You can do whatever you like with it. Just taste it for flavor. This one for me needs a little bit more salt. So when we're putting salt into our product here, before I do this, let's go take a look at our risotto just to make sure it's doing all good over there. Multitasking. So as we get over to our rice here, as you can tell, I go like this. I spread the rice, part the seed, it's still stuck on either side. Now I just want you to take one grain. Maybe don't do what I'm doing. I have dead fingers. That's still pretty crunchy for me. So again, I'm going to add in another 1/3. I'm going to try to save about 100 mils of this stock. So I'm going to try to save about this much so I can finish it off with it. Once we have that in, we're going to cook that down again. Give it a nice stir. I love this pink spatula, by the way. It is so good. There we go. So now, when we're seasoning the ingredients, this needs a little bit more salt for me. So, not everybody likes the same amount of salt. The doctor told me the other day I need to eat more salt, and I thought she was absolutely crazy because I am not shy with salt. So, and I don't think I ever have been in my whole life. I was actually scared for that, and for her to say that is like, are you sure? So we have a 1 pinch a 2-pinch, a 3-pinch, and a 4-pinch. A 4-pinch is about a tablespoon of salt. And when I say a 4-pinch, I mean like you're going in like a crane into a quarry to get as much salt as you possibly can. So for this, I'm going to put in a 2-pinch. So I have a 1-2 pinch. I go like this, I drop it in. And now whenever I would tell my cooks in the restaurant or in a setting of they're like, hey, how much salt do I put in? I'll say put in a 1-pinch, or I'll taste it and be like, hey, throw in a 4-pinch. It all depends on where the seasoning is at right now. So for me, I do a 2-pinch, and now I would suggest you start with a 1-pinch just so that you get used to your own seasoning. After you've seasoned food thousands of times, you kind of just know how much salt goes in there. So once you get that in there, I'm just gonna take my tasting spoon. Perfect. And that is delicious. So I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna put it to the side until we're ready to throw our appetizers together. You can put this into a bowl, or you can put it into a little cup. You can do whatever you like with it. I'm just gonna keep it in this jug, just because it's convenient. You can take your blender, just put it out of the way, maybe put it away if that's convenient for you. And there, we are multitasking. We are learning to be professional cooks. We are getting everything together here. We have our charred beets. We have our pumpkin seed hummus ready. We got our mint. We have our risotto cooking. And as soon as that's ready, we're gonna go into the next thing. How's your hummus game? How's your hummus game doing? Is it tight? Is it loose? Is it tasty? Is it salty enough? What does your hummus need? Drop in the comments. And as well, I have a whole lemon there for you, so if you feel like that hummus needs more lemon juice, feel free to put a squeeze of lemon juice in there. Remember, this is your meal, your class, your time. You are cooking all the food. You are the chef. You are the master of your domain. So I want you all just to taste a little bit of rice right now and just see where it is. Now for me, when I taste this rice, that's done. That doesn't need to go anymore for me. So that took about 15 minutes. Now all we do, when your rice is to the point that you like it, when you think it's just cooked well enough, we're gonna put it to the back and we're just gonna take it off the heat. That's what we do in a professional kitchen. So that rice is about 90% cooked. Now we just need to save it for whenever we need it. So if ever you planned on cooking risotto tomorrow night for dinner or the next night for dinner, this is how restaurants do it. We're not making you risotto fresh from scratch every time you come into the restaurant. Some restaurants do. They also charge you $80 or $90 for that risotto. And as you can tell, it's quite stressful to get it ready for you to make sure it's perfectly cooked. So the only thing we need to do now, this is just stock and rice. And now we have all of our other ingredients. We have our butter, our corn puree, our miso, and bacon. That's all gonna go in right before we finish it. So you don't need it right now, but right before we finish it, that's where we do. So in a professional, really busy setting, our rice would be this cooked. And then when you come in and order the risotto, and we're just before we go to put it on a bowl and give it to you, we put everything in, we finish it, we put it in the bowl, and we give it to you. So little tricks of the trade here. You're turning your house into a fine dining, casual restaurant. Enjoy that. So our risotto's done, our brownie's in the oven. All we need to do now is finish risotto, sear a piece of fish, and plate our appetizer. Now, if you want a really convenient way to cook stress-free, either for your family or soon when people are coming over to our house, we can plate our appetizers well ahead of time. So we have our charred beets here. We're gonna plate our appetizer now, but we don't need to serve it right away. So this is really convenient. You know, you can plate your appetizers 2 or 3 hours ahead of time, and then all you need to do is take the plate and serve it to the people when they're ready to eat. And that way you can enjoy the company, enjoy all your wine, have a good time, and you don't need to be stressed out. So what we're gonna do here is grab our medium bowl. We're gonna drop our charred beets. Now these charred beets, these are cooked at 550 degrees for an hour and a half. So we get the largest beets we can find and we absolutely torch them until they are black. Now, what this does is it cooks off a lot of the moisture and it concentrates a lot of the flavor. You can do this with beets, with celery root, with cabbage, with onions, with carrots. It doesn't matter. This is a fantastic way to cook vegetables. I encourage you to try these just raw on their own so you know what they're like. So we're gonna grab these beets into the bowl. We're gonna grab a 2 pinch of salt out of our little salt bowl into the beets. We have a little bit of mint here. We're just going to hand tear up the mint into the beets. There we go. There we go. And we have a lemon. Remember, lemon goes in everything and it makes everything taste better. So we'll take our half a lemon here. Just try to make sure that no seeds go in there. You don't need all the juice from half the lemon. Maybe just a half a lemon. Get that in there. And then we're just going to take a quick, maybe teaspoon to tablespoon of olive oil. Now, I don't have a measuring spoon. I just do it by eye. You just need a little bit in there. And we just toss our beets around. So toss those beets around in the bowl. Make sure they're well dressed. We are going to take our hummus right here. So our hummus in from our blender. I'm going to put it down as a sauce. And now if you had to use something else and your hummus is a little bit thinner, you can use whatever you like. You can toss the beets. You can just pour the hummus right over the beets. I'm going to make a little pool here, right in the middle. And like I said, this can all be done ahead of time. You don't need to do this right before your guests are eating. We're going to split the amount of beets between the 2 plates. So we have that there, 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 one more there. There's no right or wrong way to do this or plate it. And I just have a little bit of arugula here. Now you can always do a couple of different things here. You can place your arugula on as a little tuft like this, or you can just be a fancy chef and use a couple of little sprigs here and there, like you're walking through a charred beet garden of appetizery from your house. It's not really a word. But there you go. You can do this ahead of time. And then all you need to do is take this dish right here, place it to the side, and it's ready to go for whenever you are ready to eat it. How good do you feel about yourself right now? Drop in the comments, out of 10. Are you crushing it? Are you nervous? Because this is where the class gets crazy and where the hardest part of the class comes in. So I hope you're ready. Take a deep breath and channel your inner Gordon Ramsay for this part. You got this. We're gonna have to multitask here. We're gonna sear fish and we're gonna finish risotto. Now, there's 2 ways to cook the fish. If you're a little nervous and you don't want to pan fry the fish, you can bake it. Oven, same temperature as you're baking the brownies is totally fine, 375 degrees. You just need a baking tray. For those of you that want to pan sear, watch me do it and then do it. Watch me do it, press pause, and then do it. So you just can get a handle on some of the techniques there. As well, your smoke alarm will go off. And most likely, 95% sure the smoke alarm is going to go off in this class. So you'll hear it in the background. But that means you're cooking it properly. So don't be worried about it. Just make sure you're well trained in the art of wafting your smoke alarm. Very important. So what we can do now is get our fish ready. So all we need to do to get the fish ready is grab our fish, a baking tray with some paper towel on it. We will cut off the top. We'll get our fish onto the paper towel. Now, your fish might not look exactly like mine. All fish is made differently, so they might be cut a little bit different. Some are bigger and smaller, depending on what our supplier gives us. But you will have a very similar looking product. So all we have to do is dry off our fish so that There's no wet, so there's no excess moisture on it. And now we have on every fish, there's a bit more of a white side and a bit more of a colored side. Whatever the colored side is, that's where the skin was. And so that's not really your presentation side. Your presentation side is the more white side. So we want to keep that side up. So we're going to keep our presentation side up. I'm going to grab a 2 pinch of salt here, and we're just going to season both sides of our fish with a 2 pinch of salt on each side. And what I mean by presentation side is that's the side that we're going to serve that's going to go facing up. So now if you are baking your fish, just put it on a baking tray, a little bit of oil, and throw it in the oven for 8 minutes. Don't do that yet. Don't throw your fish in the oven yet. I will tell you exactly when to do that. We are going to pan-sear this fish, we can take it, put it to the side, and we're gonna go get ready to finish our risotto and pan-sear our fish. So come with me. So this is the most intense piece of the class, the height of the class. You're gonna need your pot of risotto here. You're going to need your corn. You're going to need your bacon, Parmesan, miso, corn puree, and butter. So this is the pinnacle of the class. We are going to finish the risotto and sear a piece of fish at the same time. If you are baking your fish, put it in the oven now. If you're baking your fish, it's the intermediate way to cook fish, throw it in the oven now. If you're pan searing, follow me. So what we want to do is have a nice dry risotto. So if we just take it here, we can tell it's dry, there's nothing to it. This risotto is going to be the exact same for the fish, for the vegetarian. It's going to be the exact same thing. So we are going to get our pan on very high heat. We're going to get a pan on very high heat and put a tablespoon of cooking oil in there. A tablespoon of cooking oil in there. Our risotto, we're going to take the rest of our cornstalk. If you used all of your cornstalk, it's okay. Use about 4 tablespoons of water. That's not going to matter. There's so much flavor in this thing. It's still going to be delicious. So I'm going to take about 100 mils of cornstalk. You don't really need to measure that out because no matter what, you will nail it and it will be delicious. So you just want a little bit of liquid in there. You can see how much liquid is in there. I'm going to add a little bit more. There we go. So you can tell how much liquid is in there. You just want it so that it's kind of like swampy risotto, I guess you'd call it as the technical term. Swampy risotto. So you just want a little bit of liquid in so it's a little pooled. I'll just use all of my liquid just to use it all up. So we have that in there. Our pan is heating up. We're going to wait till this pan is smoking hot. And now that everything is in this risotto here, so butter into the pan. Corn puree into the pan, into the risotto. There we go. The whole thing of miso into the risotto. Now, whenever you're making any kind of risotto from this day forward, put miso in it. It is a game changer. If you don't know what miso tastes like, try a little bit of this. It is so good. Parmesan, boom, all of it into the pan. The bacon, we're gonna leave outside to garnish the top of the plate with. So the bacon, just set aside for now. And we're just gonna melt all this down. We're gonna turn the risotto on medium heat. And we're gonna slowly start to emulsify that together. And our pan here is smoking hot for the fish. So we have our risotto on medium heat. We have our pan on extremely high heat. Now, when we're searing with oil this hot, what you wanna do is tip the pan away from you so the oil runs down the pan. We're gonna put our fish in the pan. We're gonna put our cod in the pan and then tilt it back. And then that's gonna be safe. That way, when you drop the fish in, no oil's gonna splatter anywhere. and that'll be everything. So again, I'll do that one more time. Presentation side down, fish into the pan, and always put it away from you. That way the oil will go away from you. If you drop it towards you, the oil can come towards you. So now, whoever is baking the fish, you should have your fish in the oven. And now, we are just going to sear this on the top, on the stovetop for 6 minutes. Pretty much on super high heat the whole time. Medium high, but closer to the high side. Not full blast, but just like 1 point below, 1 notch below full blast. With this risotto, we are going to melt everything together. And now the thing with risotto is you want it kind of loose. You don't want it soupy, but when it hits the plate, it should go, ah, and it should just relax into the plate. Now, it might start off a little soupy, it might look a little watery, but nothing like high heat to cook off the liquid, to evaporate it, to tighten up the butter and cheese in it. The thing that you don't want in your risotto is to have it be clumpy. You don't want it to clump onto your plate. You want it to hit your plate and slowly just relax into the plate. So, right now the risotto is looking a little soupy. You know, if we go to part the C, kind of there's a lot of liquid there, but that's okay. There's also a lot of fat in there. Now, risotto, contrary to popular to belief, is very high in calories and fat. It's not healthy for you. But we put corn in it to make you feel like you're being healthy. Perceivably healthy is the game here. So we have our fish searing over here, over nice high heat. Get some oil on it. And we have a risotto going. So we're doing 2 things at once here. Maybe a little stressful. Just notice that the fish is not moving at all. Don't try to lift it off the pan. Don't try to swirl it around. Leave it exactly in the same position that it is until we are ready to flip it in about 4 to 5 minutes from now. You want to make sure it gets a nice hard sear on it as well. You just want it to get a good crust on it. So our risotto is cooking down here. Everything's mixed in. Now we're just to the risotto, we're just going to add in, there's a lot of miso in there. Miso is extremely salty. So we're just going to add in a 2 pinch of salt, maybe a 3 pinch. And we can take our corn nibs here. We're going to take our corn nibs. We're going to add that in. Bam, all the corn. And as we're getting down here, you can see it start to tighten up a bit. And look at you, you are cooking like a pro. So, whenever you come in to eat at a restaurant, you always want main course pickups to be about 8 to 12 minutes. So with that, you know, when the server comes and goes pick up the main course for a table at your house, we want to be 8 to 10 minutes away. So this is what it looks like. This is how it would look in a restaurant. We'd have all of our cheese, all of our butter portion, we'd have our risotto portion, and we're just finishing it up for service. So the order would come in, we would start cooking the fish, because you can't really pre-cook fish, don't ever do that. And then we're just going to finish up the risotto and finish up the fish. So if you come here and take a look at the risotto, it's really getting there. You can tell when I part it, it slowly relaxes back into the middle. This is going to be done in about 30 seconds. So I'm going to pull this off the heat just so we don't overcook it. And now with the fish, we're just going to see how easily that released from the bottom of the pan. Now, if ever your food is sticking to the bottom of the pan, just leave it. Leave it. Don't try to change it. It's perfect the way it is. Eventually, at some point, it will just release from the bottom of the pan. So there's a lot of heat in this pan right now. It's been on full blast for about 45 minutes. 4 to 5 minutes, not 45 minutes. We can just let this rest in the hot pan. The hot pan is going to continue to cook the fish. So we can just leave it there while we plate up our risotto and get everything together for this. So if you're vegetarian, cooking mushroom risotto, you could heat up the mushrooms in a pan just like this. Just quickly toss it in a pan till they're nice and warm and the fridge chill is taken off of them. And let's go plate our risotto. All right, so this risotto is 98% done. The only things we need left to do are taste it for our culinary excellence. Make sure there's enough salt in it. It's probably ripping hot, so just make sure it doesn't take the skin off your mouth. So good. Half a lemon, the whole juice from half a lemon. And just put your hand underneath to catch any seeds that might want to get in there. Lemon seeds are never pleasant to eat. And we're just going to emulsify that lemon in there. So now, we go to plate the risotto. As it hits the bowl, should just relax down there. Take it. I like to hit the bottom of it just to flatten out the risotto. And now we have our fish. Place that on top. If there's any kind of specks on the inside of your bowl, just take your rag and just wipe out the inside. Now we have a little bit of bacon on this. If you don't eat bacon, that's okay, just don't put it on. But if you do, just take half of the bacon bits, sprinkle it on for garnish, save the other half for the other dish. And now, just like before with the arugula, I always like a couple of leaves on there, not to overshoot it. There you go. Have it look nice and beautiful. And that is how you make an amazing corn bacon miso risotto with sablefish. So our brownie's coming out of the oven here. So I had a nice, you can tell when the top starts to crack and separate, that means that it's beautifully cooked. I'm gonna cool this down for an hour at least before I take it out of the tray, and we'll be good to go. So there you go. You made a beautiful 3-course meal. Put some ice cream on top of your brownie and enjoy. So now that our brownie is cooled down, I just flipped it out of the tray, and we are just going to cut this into, I mean, you could cut this into 2 portions if you want. It'd be heavy, but you can do it. I believe in you. So I'm just gonna cut a nice big piece out of this brownie here. Oh, it's gonna be so good and moist and delicious. There's a nice layer of melted chocolate running down the middle. And we'll get this on a plate, a nice big scoop of ice cream, and we'll be good to go. And that is our brownie with ice cream. Vegan, gluten-free.